Everyone, can you hear me? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This isn't very loud, Mike. Our mic. Good afternoon, everyone. Nobody in the board.
To the meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission for February 22nd, 2024. You like our new meeting room?
So far.
We want our chairs back.
Yeah, we want our chairs back.
Okay, well, let's start with opening announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call now, please?
Yes, sir.
Dool. Here.
Foster.
Here.
McKay.
Here.
Fry.
Present.
Bill Johnson,
Here.
Blick,
Present.
Nix,
Here.
Fox,
Here.
Warren,
Here.
Joe Johnson,
Here.
Miles,
Present.
Zimbelman,
Here.
Aldrich,
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Sir, I show 14 members present.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to make an announcement that we have a switch in committees. Tony Zimbelman is moving to subdivisions, and Brian Fry will move to advanced plans. So for the record, we've made those changes, and everybody's good with it. Next, I'd like to have approval of the minutes of January 25th. I show Brian Fry is abstaining because he wasn't on the commission at that time.
Approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Joe Johnson and a second by Miles. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We also have a request for approval of the minutes of the February 8, 2024 meeting. And I show that Bill Johnson and Joe Johnson were absent for that meeting.
Move to approve.
Excuse me, a correction, please. I was also absent from that meeting.
That's right.
Move to approve with that correction.
Second.
Okay. Second by Miles and, motion by Miles and second by Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And okay, we do have a BZA case to present, but we'll go through the agenda and see what we can take on consent first. First is sub 2024-002, one-step final plat near South George Washington Boulevard and Oliver. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear this case? We'll take that case on consent. Next is sub 2024-0004, one-step final plat, North Hillside and East 85th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? Being none, we'll take that case on consent. Next is sub 2024-0005, one-step final plat located in the corner of Maple and South McLean Boulevard. Does anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that on commission. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 per staff recommendations. Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Fox and a second by Ms. Miles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now public hearing items. We have vacation 2024-0001 near Essner Avenue and Meridian. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear that case? Take that on consent. Item 3.2 is vacation 2024. It is located on South Seneca and West Street. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Anyone from the public who would like to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Next, 3.3 is Vacation 2024, located on the southwest corner of 37th Street in St. Francis. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Item 3.4, Vacation 2023, is a vacation request at West Douglas and 1 block west of North Sycamore. Does anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Does anyone from the public here want to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Item 3.5, Vacation 2023, located at the northwest corner of Hoover Avenue and West Central. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? Take that on consent. We have next 3.3, Vacation 2024, is located on the south side of MacArthur Road, near 135th Street West and West MacArthur. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? No, we'll take that on consent.
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Councilor.
Yes.
Just for clarification with the public, I believe it's actually 3.6, is that correct?
Yes, 3.6, I'm sorry.
Is any member of the public wanting to hear that case?
Yeah, anybody from the public want to hear case 3.6, 2024?
Mr. Chair, we have.
Okay, we'll hear that case. We have a motion to approve the rest of the cases on consent.
Motion to approve 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Blick and a second by Mr. Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same motion. Motion carries. Okay, now public hearings, we have 4.1, Con 2024-0002, located on the west side of North Hoover Road, west of First Street North, 255 North Hoover. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? If not, we'll take it on consent. Next is 4.2, CUP 2024-0001. That is located 1/4 mile north of East K96, address 3590 North Woodlawn. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Anyone from the public want to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Next is item 4.3, CUP 2024-0002. And that case is located on the southeast corner of East 29th Street North and North Rock Road. Does anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public here that wants to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Next is item 4.4, Zone 2024-0001. It is located on the north side of West 31st Street South, within 1/4 mile east of South Seneca. Does anyone on the commission? Okay, we will hear that case. Pardon? 4.4. Yeah, 4.4, right. 4.5 is Zone 2024-0002, and that is located at West 2nd Street North and North Doris Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? We'll take 4.5 on consent. The last case we will hear.
Move to approve 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.5.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Foster and a second by Blick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. This time we'll go back and we will resign the Planning Commission meeting and move to Board of Zoning Appeals. And we've already taken the roll for that. Do we need to call roll again? Okay.
No, sir.
We need to approve the BZA meetings, minute meetings of January 25th, 2024. Fry should abstain on that.
Second.
Okay, move to approve by Miles and a second by Joe Johnson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Okay, this next case we can consider on consent, but I'd like to call on staff for an explanation of why we're rehearing this case.
Yes, good afternoon, Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. Nope, it is on.
Do we need to hold it? Okay. So we can all do this today, pay attention. Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. Just a quick staff update. You guys received a revised staff report via email this morning as well as at your desk. Quick clarification on the second request. The first request was for a 9 to 10 foot wall, which is pretty standard for Evergy. The second request, there was a misreading of the details in the application. Equipment, it was originally written that it was going to be 20 inches into the setback, when in reality it's 20 feet into the setback. The setback is 25 feet. Therefore, there'd be 5 feet between equipment and the masonry wall. All of the equipment under consideration will be behind the masonry wall, either completely or partially obstructed by this wall. So that is the staff update for your consideration. The revised staff report at your desk has a revised analysis for your consideration. Again, it is up to the board this afternoon if you deem to take it on consent. We haven't heard any public comment. We can call for public comment like we normally do, but this item can be taken on consent if you all feel that all 5 criteria are still met based on the revised analysis of the encroachment into the setback by 20 feet.
My recommendation would be that since the only change since this case was previously heard is that typographical error that we're going to correct. Is everybody agreeable? I guess we can take a vote on it. We take a vote on this as a consent item?
We will need to ask for public comment first.
Okay.
If there's anybody here for public comment.
Does anyone from the public want to hear this case presented? If not, we will take it on consent. Since that's the only case.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
The conditions?
We do take the BZA 2040-0002 on consent.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Aldrich, second by Mr. Warren. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Wait a second.
Oh.
Are we voting to take it on consent or are we voting to approve it?
Take it on consent.
We're voting, we've never voted to take things on consent before, so I'm just a little confused, but whatever.
I'm relying upon staff on that, go ahead.
Sure. In order to help out, I guess one clarifying statement that could be made is if the individuals who made the motion would be willing to clarify that that their motion includes approval as well as taking it on consent.
Well, my motion was for approval, but what I should have recommended is that we approve with the corrections, the BZA case.
And that's from the person who made the motion, person who seconds?
I concur.
Okay, concurrence.
That being the case, since there was no one from the public that wanted to speak on it, should we just consider it an approval? Or should it be both?
I would take the vote, sir.
Okay, the motion is for both. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So now we go back to the subdivision cases. We had one on, we had 3.6 on vacation requests. Can we have a staff presentation on that case?
Yes, good afternoon again. Philip Zievenbergen with Planning Staff. Vacation 2406, a request in the county to vacate a portion of complete access control at a property addressed 13301 West MacArthur Road. As you can see here, it's on the south side of West MacArthur and within a quarter mile east of South 135th Street West. This property was platted in 2001. If you want to go to the aerial, and the applicant who currently owns the property was the applicant at the time of platting. It was platted using a shared access drive that was dedicated by separate instrument along the east property line, and it shares a access with a neighbor adjacent to them. Since that time, there has been, according to the applicant, some conflicts with the neighbor regarding access and it being blocked off and just not necessarily in good rapport in a relationship with them. So they're asking for a separate driveway for themselves onto West MacArthur Road. They showed it at approximately 150 feet west of the current location. It would provide, the house is now complete. This is not the most up-to-date aerial, but they have it complete with a driveway and a paved driveway that goes out to the gravel shared access drive. County Public Works commented on this. Initially, they are not in favor of it, just with access management policies. However, they said that if it were to be approved, that they would recommend having the driveway shift slightly to the west so it lines up with the driveway with the house across the street. They would be amenable to that. At the subdivision committee last week, there was no public opposition to this request, and the subdivision committee recommended approval, subject to the driveway, the access area being moved slightly west to line up with the driveway across the street. So the condition of approval was revised to need a revised legal description in order to vacate that portion of access control at the correct location. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission of staff on this? If not, I would call on the agent or applicant to come forward. Please state your name, and you will have 10 minutes to present. Right?
Address.
Yes, your name and your address for the record, please.
She's translating.
Christina Reith with planning staff. I will be providing translation services. This here is Irma Hernandez, and she lives at 13301 West MacArthur Road.
I'm sorry, Christina,
Yes?
would you ask her on the record if she has no trouble with you being the interpreter since you're a staff member?
Sure. She says she doesn't have any issue with that. Thank you. Sorry, there was a comment earlier about moving the driveway slightly to the west, is that correct? She does not have any issue moving the driveway to the west. Sorry, to line up with the other house across the street.
Oh, okay.
Does she agree with all the other conditions?
Yes. Do you agree with all the other conditions that staff has put in the application?
She says yes, she agrees with the conditions of approval provided by staff.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the commission of the applicant or agent here? If not, we'll call on anybody from the public that would like to speak on this. You'll have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address. Somebody wanted to hear it, didn't they?
We're going to get you a rear view mirror, Bob.
Yeah, she was the one that wanted to hear it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hearing no one from the public that wants to speak on this, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Approve 3.6.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, Joe Johnson made a motion, and Miles seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So, did we have any other cases? I think we approved everything else.
4.4.
4.4, right, okay. Zoning case 4.4, we'll have a staff presentation on that. I had noted that, but I noted it before.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christina Reith with planning staff again. The applicant for Zone 2024 quadruple 01 and Con 2024 quadruple 01 has two requests. The first is a zone change from SF5 single family residential to GO general office and a conditional use request for correctional placement residence limited. The subject site is a little bit under 2 acres in size and is located at 928 West 31st Street North. The site is currently developed with a vacant church that was constructed in 1970. So the purpose of these two requests is to allow correctional placement residents limited on site. So as you can see in the site plan in your report, the applicant intends to use the existing place of worship for the correctional placement residents. The Wichita-Sedgwick County Unified Zoning Code has a definition for a correctional placement residence that is listed in your staff report. So correctional placement residence limited means a facility occupied by 3 to 5 individuals, including staff members who may reside there. The zoning code requires a conditional use in GO zoning when the proposed correctional placement residence is within 750 feet of the residential zoning district. The subject site abuts SF5 on the north and east side. So if we take a look at the zoning map here, everything that you see that's in white, that is SF5. The requested zone change, should it be approved, shall permit more uses on site than the current zoning. There would also be a reduction in minimum lot area, minimum lot width, front setback, rear setback, interior side setback, and maximum height requirements, as you can see in the table that's in your staff report. Compatibility standards for setbacks and height shall apply to the subject site because it is within 500 feet of property zoned TF3 or more restrictive. In this case here, because it abuts SF5. So the existing building that the applicant intends to use for correctional placement residence is already 25 feet from the rear property line. And then should they do any additional development, on the side of the property, that shall be no less than 25 feet from the east property line. And no structure shall exceed 35 feet in height when it is within the 50 feet of the lot line of property zoned TF3 or more restrictive. The existing structure that they're utilizing is under 35 feet in height. The parking requirements for correctional placement residence limited is 1 parking space per employee in the largest working shift, plus 1 space per resident who is permitted to drive. There is a 92 space parking lot that already exists on site, so that provides sufficient parking for the maximum of 15 residents that are allowed by correctional placement residents. A little bit of case history on this subject site. So in 2000, the MAPC granted a conditional use to allow daycare general on site. And in 2016, the Wichita City Council approved a vacation request to vacate a portion of the platted Diane Street, which is a public right-of-way on the north end of the subject site. That was vacation 2016-00021. And the applicant has concurrently filed a vacation case to vacate a sewer easement under an existing building. That was vacation 2024-02. So when it comes to the conformance to our plans and policies, the zone change and conditional use requests are in conformance with the community investments plan. The plan has a Wichita future growth concept map that identifies the site to be appropriate for commercial uses. And then when we look at the locational guidelines of the community investments plan, they state that except in mixed-use development areas, non-residential uses should provide appropriate screening and buffering from residential uses. So should the request be approved, the property shall be required to provide screening and landscaping where adjacent to residential zoning, and it is subject to compatibility, height, and setback standards. The requests are in conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. The subject site is located within an area of stability. And to summarize it, improvements should be targeted to support development momentum and strengthen the established physical context. So the requests for the zone change and the conditional use will serve as a buffer between the commercial zoning to the west here. Everything in red is LC limited commercial, and then the residential zoning to the east. And moreover, the proposed site will utilize the existing building for its correctional placement residence, which reinforces the established physical context. The plan has a set of 6 strategies, and so strategy 6 is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it's occurring. And as I mentioned earlier, they're redeveloping the existing building for the proposed uses, which will maintain the integrity and continuity of the surrounding environment. Based upon the information available at the time the staff report was prepared, it is recommended that the zone change and the conditional use requests be approved, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. This recommendation is based on the golden rules. I will skip ahead to the last golden rule, which is opposition or support of neighborhood residents. When we submitted this report to you guys, we did not receive any comments. That has since changed. Earlier this week, I did send out an email with written comments from the public. I also have received several phone calls. There was a lady who was concerned about just the proposed use on site and how it would impact her neighborhood. So let's go through some of the photos here. This is an aerial of the subject site. Next slide, please. This is the Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, indicating that it is appropriate for commercial uses. Next slide, please. This is a map of the notification area. As you can see here, it is within 350 feet of the subject site. Next slide, please. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant demonstrating the existing church that they are going to utilize for this correctional placement residence. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards the site. Next slide, please. This is also looking north towards the site. So there is existing screening between the limited commercial and what is now SF5 per the screening requirements of the Unified Zoning Code. Next slide, please. This is looking west towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the site. So the property that you see there is also owned by the applicant. Next slide, please. And this is looking south away from the site. Next slide, please. This is looking west away from the site towards the existing financial institution. Next slide, please. And that concludes my site photos, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Mr. Aldridge.
On your staff report, condition number 3, there should be a full-time staff supervision day and night at the correctional placement residence. Is that hired staff, or is that staff from maybe a member or a resident that's actually living there?
I will defer to the applicant to see if, because these conditions of approval were agreed upon with the applicant when we were writing the report. So I will defer to him for that clarification.
And probably have to do the same thing. Item B regarding security cameras inside and outside of the facility. Who's going to monitor that? Is that a full-time staff, paid staff, or is that a resident?
Sure. Just Scott Wadle, Planning Director. So I just want to add that for that condition, that there shall be a full-time staff providing supervision for day and night. It does not specify whether or not that staff person is a resident or not. So if you would like to see that condition changed, now's the time to do that. Okay. Hang on, we've got some more information for you too.
J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning for the record. So this operation is going to be licensed, must be licensed in the city of Wichita. There's a complete city title that covers this. There's a chapter. And what we do here cannot conflict with that. I'm going to look up because I'm getting old and my memory simply doesn't allow me to remember exactly what's specified. I don't know that it has to be a hired non-resident staff person. I will look at that. I will also look at the security. Security, as I recall, is a requirement of that title, and it's going to be monitored by the staff in the operation. But I will look that up to verify.
Well, because I know we've here in the past we've had a couple of cases come up in front of us with that same sort of scenario, but it was for not for a halfway house, it's for a different use, and it turns out that the supervision would be based on somebody that one of the residents. So that's why I'm questioning it.
I'll verify.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions? Yes. Mr. Nix.
So it seems to me like it's kind of a tough decision. If you look down at number 5, under recommendation based on the following findings, number 5, looks to me like we're weighing relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare. We're weighing that against the loss in value and hardship imposed upon the applicant. So if we were to deny it, we're essentially saying you can't have it, I don't know what we call this, halfway house, versus the residents who live in the area who I'm certain must be concerned with this kind of facility. I'd be concerned if it was, if I lived close to it, I would be concerned to it. So it looks to me like we're wrestling with either looking at it one way or looking at it the other, is what I'm seeing.
Are there any other questions of staff from the commission? If not, I will call on the agent or applicant to come forth. You have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Thank you, Christina. My name is Brian Lindeback, MKEC Engineering, 411 North Webb Road, on behalf of the owner and applicant. With me is Wayne Gray. He is the president of the organization that seeks to bring this organization here. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. We are in agreement with staff comment. We have worked with them on some of these additional provisions that are above and beyond what would normally be required. So we are in agreement with all of the extra supplemental provisions. We did receive some comments from the public that Christina relayed to me, and we've also, as a team, we've responded to upwards of 12 people, I believe, in those, and we've also provided you some information about the organization. I might just turn it over to Mr. Gray and let him explain a little bit more about the organization. I think it's important to know that this is not a halfway house. It's a facility for drug and alcohol treatment.
Thank you. My name is Wayne Gray. I'm the president of Teen Challenge of Oklahoma and Kansas. I reside at 5808 Twin Fawn Trail, Mustang, Oklahoma. And thank you for the opportunity to share. I do hopefully can clear up a few things and let everyone know a little bit about who we are and what we do. As was stated, we are not a halfway house. We are not a early release from prison. We do not take parolees. They're not sentenced there to our program. And I know that's some concerns from the neighborhood, and I just want to let everyone know that is not what we do. We do not take registered sex offenders. What we are is a long-term Christian recovery program. It's not even traditional treatment, as you would think. It's recovery. We provide recovery services for people that have drug and alcohol problems. And the people that come to us have just fallen on hard times, and they may have gotten themselves in some issues with probation, and that's why we wanted this license for so that we can help people that have maybe gotten caught up a little bit in with the probation or something. But I just want to clarify, we do not take people that are early released from prison, and we do not contract with the state of Kansas for any beds. That's not what we are and what we do. We're just here to serve the community. And a few things to make everyone aware. Our residents do not have cars. We do not allow them. The only cars you'll see in our parking lot will be our staff. And so our residents are not allowed to come and go. They will not be walking around the neighborhood. If someone was to leave, then they would be dismissing themselves from the program. Also, another deterrent for that is we take their luggage, we keep it locked up. If someone says, hey, I'm done, I don't want to finish the program, then they have to come to us to get their luggage. And at that point, we assist them. If we can't talk them into staying, we assist them into getting a ride out of there. Most of the time we call a family member will come get them, or we'll take them to the bus station and they will get them a ticket to leave that way. So people will not just be coming and going, walking. They will not be holding jobs on the outside. What we do as a group. We go to church as a group. We do in all of our other programs that we have in Oklahoma, which we have 6 there. We own businesses, thrift stores. We go there. We work as a group there, so people are not coming and going to other jobs. So it's very controlled. We will have security system, camera systems, and yes, they will be monitored by a paid staff. We will have most of our staff will live on campus. If we have 6 to 8 staff, or if we have 8 staff, probably 6 of them are going to live right there on the facility. And so it will not be monitored among residents. It will be monitored by people that are paid and that work there. And so that is a little bit of the issues that I know concern the neighborhood, and I certainly understand that. So we just want to clarify who we are, what we do. We're here. We've been in the area just making friends and pastors. We have Pastor Bethel Life here to represent his church as well. So we want to thank the community, the city of Wichita, for just basically open arms. We've been just anybody that wants us to get around and talk and speak and share about what we do, because we're not trying to hide anything. We're just trying to help people. As we know, there's so much of our crime, so much of everything that happens is because of drug-related offenses and different things. And we feel like we can help the community by helping those that are struggling with addiction.
I had provided some additional information for the Planning Commissioner's pamphlet brochure, and I hope you had a chance to review that, especially the last page of that pamphlet. It has some summary stats, and I thought it'd be important to share some of those stats with you. 1 in 10 addicts will seek treatment this year. 170 Americans under the age of 50 die per day due to opioid use. 1 in 5 high school students binge drink. 78% of the adult teen challenge graduates remain drug and alcohol free, and 91% have improved family relationships. 87% did not require additional treatment after their program, and this is another great stat. 90% of the graduates are reported in excellent health. So I think there's just a litany of things that they're just doing wonderful things for our community if they would be given this chance to do so. And stand for any questions.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yes, I actually have a couple of questions. Do you have any other facilities located in the metropolitan area, Wichita-Sedgwick County?
No, we don't have any other facilities here. This will be our first base facility outside of Oklahoma.
Okay, that took care of my second question. Who's going to, as far as monitoring the residents, you said they're not going to be able to drive or leave. Is this going to be a gated type facility? If not, then are they going to be allowed to wander outside the walls, if you will? And then what would prevent them, if that answer is yes, from just walking off and in the neighborhood or something and then coming back? Or how is that all being monitored?
Yeah, there will be some rec time. Obviously, get them out of the house, get them out of the building for that. Our plan is to put a fence up for there to so they can have privacy, recreation, to be some kind, but not a gated. It won't be anything gated and monitored with coming and going again, because our residents will not have vehicles. I mean, they could walk, but off the property, yes, but we monitor them. So if they're out having fun, I mean, it's being monitored. So if somebody goes off the property, we'll know about it, and they're done. We would dismiss them from the program. We tell them that on all of our facilities. We have 6 facilities. 3 are inside of cities. We have 2 on Main Street, one in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and one in a bedroom there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we monitor everything they do. And so we would know if they were to leave and walk through the neighborhood.
Well, I know you made the comment that it's not a halfway house, and
Right.
I'm just wondering what is the difference between what you're proposing to do and basically what a halfway house does. It sort of sounds like it's pretty familiar to me, and then I'm just also curious why this site was chosen for your facility.
A halfway house is the way I understand it. Soberly, they would be a lot in halfway house required to get jobs, work in the community, come back, pay rent, keep rules. Again, our residents do not hold individual jobs. We will have a micro enterprise. Our plan would probably be to do like a thrift store. We own 6 of those, and we work there as a group. We go in a van, we go together. So that would make us different. We're long-term Christian recovery services, and so that's where I see that we would differ from a halfway house. The other question?
Why was this particular location chosen?
Well, we wanted to serve the community of Wichita, and we like the facility. We think it would make a good place, and we wanted to be. We didn't want to be out in the country. We wanted to be up in the community. Every place we are, we get involved in the community and food drives, different things, and so we wanted to serve Wichita. And so we've looked at several places, and we have settled on that place. Should it pass the zoning rezoning?
To follow up on Mr. Aldridge's question, do the residents supervise themselves, or is there an employee of your company that's there all the time?
I might just add that these are voluntary residents. They're not placed there. So I think that's a very important distinction. It's not, you weren't placed there in like a halfway house. So.
Yes, as I said, we don't contract any beds, so we screen. We have the right to deny anyone we don't feel is ready for the program. But again, your question is, the supervision will be paid staff, and we probably, when the program would be running at full capacity, we would have 8 to 10 staff there, and 8 of them would probably, if it goes by the same, ratios that our other program, 8 of them would be living there. And so at no time are the residents monitoring each other. It'd be done by paid staff.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Williams Bay?
Yes, is there a maximum length of time an individual can stay at the facility?
Yes, our goal is 1 year.
1 year?
Yes, which is, as I said, long-term Christian recovery services. And so we just believe when a person is on drugs, alcohol, there's so much that goes with it. Besides, the drugs is just a surface issue. And so, we want to see them turn from their and not come back, because so many people go in 30-day programs, and it's good programs, but they just need more. And so, yes, 1 year would be our target for them to go through the program successfully. Well, most people have a place to go. We try to make sure they do. Family, somewhere to go. And so we wouldn't just put them out on the street after 1 year. We've really never had an issue. Some people decide that they want to do an internship, and so we would allow them to stay. We have a kind of a program, an online school, where they start doing like an internship, start giving back and helping that way. And so... Yeah, we have an aftercare. We plan probably around month 9. We start talking seriously about what their plan would be when they finish the program.
Thank you,
Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Brian. Quick question for you. Based on the description that you're saying for these services, it doesn't sound like a correctional placement residence. So why is this being asked?
Yes.
Is this the direction staff gave you, or is this your request?
So just know that there'll be more than the goal is to house as many folks as they can at this facility that are seeking these services. there could be upwards of 30 people there, but not, or 40 or so. But, as you can read from the staff comments, the correctional placement limited only allows for 15, the maximum of 15. And so it's not a large portion of their operation, but in the event that someone did have some sort of probation or other things like that, we don't want to exclude them from entering the program voluntarily. We want them to be able to have that opportunity that someone else that does have, doesn't have that issue. But I think it's probably fairly understood that, people that are wanting to make a change in our life have had some problems with the law or some sort of issues. So we want that as an option. So it's not could they do this without it? Yes, but they're going to be excluding a certain population, and that's not, part of their model. Their model, I think if you've read through some of the materials I provided you, they've been around since 1954. I've watched some wonderful videos on their Oklahoma website. We've got a lot of testimonials from presidents and vice, lots of important people have, supported this operation since 1954. So they're a tested model, and this isn't just kind of a fly-by-night deal. And then I was going to save this for later, but I think we've talked, and we would like to put a deed restriction on the property so that when and if they ever do vacate the property, you would no longer have the ability to have a correctional placement residence there. That would eliminate that, and I think that would put some folks at ease as to this type of facility, so that someone else doesn't have the opportunity to come in and do this to maybe a different standard than they do.
Mr. Blick?
Brian, I appreciate that information, especially at the end. I think Bob was asking all my questions I had written down, but I do have a couple others. The other locations that you have, are those in residential neighborhoods also?
We have 6 other locations, and 3 of them are 2 of them are rural. 1 is in a small town, Chakota, Oklahoma, where Carrie Underwood's from, and then 3 are in a residential or metro area. Sapulpa, Oklahoma, which is a part of the Tulsa Metro, we're on Main Street there, and there's a neighborhood right behind us. Stillwater, Oklahoma, we're on Main Street there. There's neighborhoods around. So we have both. We have rural. We have those up in neighborhoods. We've never had an issue because we take it very seriously. Definitely. And so we've not had an issue. Teen Challenge is in over 200 programs across the country, 220. I'm not aware of any issues of that because the Teen Challenge, that's kind of a standard nationwide, the accountability and the oversight that we have.
And then also will the church still maintain their worshipship and all that stuff at the church? Is it still going to be maintained as a church where people are coming and going along with this, or is it just the church is going to stop?
No, Evidence Churches has already moved. They moved to Mays area, so it's been up for sale there. So there's no church happening there, and no, there will not be. The only thing that we would ever do there, as far as we have family weekends sometimes where we invite the families to come, and we'll have a worship service together with their families. Okay. But as far as for the public, though, we have no plans. We will not be doing that.
And then, Brian, you answered my last questions, is if you guys cease operations, do you mind going back to the previous zoning? So, and you said that with the deed, so.
I actually reviewed this with J.R. Cox this morning because I wanted to make sure what we could do and what we could not do, and ideally we would have it on the public record in the document itself that we would cease this operation if these folks don't own the property, but that is not legal. So we will do it the legal way that we can do it, and that's by putting the restriction on ourselves. In the event that they vacate it's functionally a residence, they vacate that operation, then it would cease to have that condition. So.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Ms. Fox.
Can you explain the educational requirements of your staff, particularly the person who's identified as the supervisor?
Well, I wouldn't say we have any educational requirements that they have to go through our training. We have just a wide variety. We'll have people that are college educated. We'll have people that are high school educated. But we have a one-year training school, which is online. Everybody has to go through that. We have standards we have to keep. We have a continuing education units that is a national standard that our staff had to keep. Even myself, as long as I've been doing it, I still have to do the CEUs as well. So there's the national standard in order to keep our affiliation with Teen Challenge USA, 20 CEUs a year there. But prior to getting to that point, though, they have to do our training, personalized training as well. And then we just have people from various different educational levels.
Are most of your staff graduates of this program, of the program as residents themselves, or?
Yes, I would say
internships.
Yeah, most of the staff would be someone that has not necessarily graduated our program, but has graduated a program somewhere in the country like that, and has been through the training as well. And for different reasons. I mean, some of the staff, like our director Darren back there, he went through the program 20 years ago, and he's on staff. So you'll have them been 20 years ago they went through the program, or 1 or 2 years ago.
Clarify the maximum occupancy. What we read in our materials is that correctional placement residence limited means occupied by 3 to 15, including the staff. You said there could be 6 to 8 staff, and then we heard possibly 30 people. So what's the maximum number of clients that could be in that facility?
That would be what the city would allow us. I know on the correctional side, there the up to 15, the limited. But as far as overall, people coming to us just totally volunteer, no, it'd be what the city said. If they say we can put 35 in there, we'll have 35.
So, city, can you clarify how many clients you can't?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
No. Not really.
Okay, well, I'll talk louder. No, they'll need a change of occupancy for the building, so there'll have to be a set of plans drawn, and that'll be determined at that time. As has been stated, the CPR aspect, because they've asked for a limited, is going to be limited to 15, including staff. And as long as I'm talking, if I may, the conditions suggested don't conflict with Title 20. The staff person might be paid, they might not be paid. They do have to meet criminal background checks. They have to go through records checks. Could well be a resident, could not be a resident. So hopefully that answered the questions.
Are there any more questions from, yes, Mr. Aldridge?
Sir, at any of your other facilities, has there ever been a need that involved law enforcement at any of your facilities for any reason?
Yes. Maybe a resident got, unruly. We didn't want to we just called, and they would just come and take them off. They would take them themselves, or just come and kind of diffuse the situation. So yeah, if someone was wanting to get violent, yes, we would call the police. Now, these are very rare, but it has happened.
Including any possible drug arrest?
No, we've never had it, to my knowledge, and I've been doing this in our organization for 16 years. We've never had anybody have drugs on the property as far as the law enforcement that we know of. I'm not going to be naive, but we've never had an issue where we had to call law enforcement and arrest them for possession of drugs.
You also mentioned that there be guests, whether it's family or friends coming to visit in the residence. Are there any procedures, or do you require anything at all as far as inspections of their person to make sure that they're not bringing any contraband into the facility?
Yes, when they come into the program for their intake, there's a thorough search of everything they have. I mean, it's a strip search. I mean, as far as they had to strip totally down, step into the shower, that kind of thing. I mean, we want to make sure they don't bring anything in. And so, but when the families come, I mean, we've been communicating back and forth with the families. We don't search them, and hopefully they wouldn't pass something along to their loved one. and which we don't have a problem with that. I'm sure, again, maybe something like that has happened, but that's not an issue. Most of the family are thankful to be able to come and just to support them.
Is this co-ed or?
No,
Okay.
it'll be men,
Okay.
adult men.
And I know there's been a mention of a school at one time, somewhere I read. How close is the nearest school there, do you know? Or might be a question for staff.
The question is how close is the nearest school? And looking at an aerial, I don't know if we've got a better map that we can use to show this, but it looks like as a crow flies, you've got about a block and a half maybe to the north and west. You've got an elementary school, and then to the south and to the north. That was to the north and to the east, and then to the south and east, you've got South High School. This is at 31st Street, and 33rd is where South High School starts.
Ms. Miles, do you have a question?
No, it was answered.
Mr. Blick.
JR, this question for you, since I don't see a signage thing, is there any required for signage for correctional placement residents that's required?
Thank you. Not that I'm aware of, no, sir, there's not. And if I may, to Commissioner Aldrich's question, a condition of their license is that they are required to control and detect contraband. I doubt that they're going to search family coming in, but they are supposed to be searching that facility on somewhat regular basis, as well as the individuals who reside in that facility, to ensure there's no contraband, whatever that contraband may be.
If I could add one more comment that I have, it's been asked of us if, with this being a Christian organization, is it open only to Christians? And the answer is no, it's open to anybody. So I think that's an important component too.
Are there any other questions from the commission? If not, thank you, and we will call on anybody from the public that would like to speak on this issue. If we have anybody that would like to speak, please come forward and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. We have anybody?
Dr. Ken Squires. My address, since I'm dyslexic, 2402 South Canyon Street. I'm the pastor of Bethel Life Center. I'm a board member of the South YMCA, as well as a soon-to-be approved chaplain of the Wichita Police Department. My main vocation is pastor of Bethel Life Center that reaches out into the community. We're known for Convoy of Hope, which last year served 14,000 people in the greater Wichita area with resources, with prayer, backpacks, and groceries. I'm familiar with Teen Challenge of America, or now called Adult Teen Challenge, which is a national organization, as they mentioned, that has been in existence since the 50s. Our church, Bethel Life Center, has a number of ministry bridges into the community. In fact, we've given our support to the One Rise effort to bring mental health nearby Bethel Life Center because it's our mission to make a difference in the community. I'm familiar with the kind of profile of the kind of individual that would end up in this program. It would be your family and friends because of their drug and alcohol addiction and whatever mischief they've caused. They want to make some changes in their lives. And this program here, Teen Challenge or Adult Teen Challenge of America, has one of the highest success rates. I'll let the research you do to discover that stand alone. Our church is wanting to be supportive of this. We're excited for the Planning Commission to help this organization understand what they need to do to potentially be a future resident, if this should be approved, and Bethel Life Center and its congregation wants to stand with this particular organization, the selection of this property, and the difference that they're going to make in that part of Wichita. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this issue? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Brittany Stotler. My address is 3438 South Hanley. I am 1 block away from the proposed location. Okay. There we go. Can you guys hear me? Do I need to start over? Okay. I live 1 block away from this proposed location. I have a 5-year-old who attends the school, the elementary school that is 2 blocks away from this location. And I have things written down because public speaking is not my thing, so bear with me here. I appreciate, can I set this here? Okay, so I appreciate the beforehand comments from the person that's wanting to take over this location, but that has led to a few other questions. So if they're not going to, for one, have a fence around their location, and they're not taking in any, for one, they're not having a fence around their location, they're outside playing. I implore you guys to, over lunch break, drive in that location, and you will see that there's hundreds of high schoolers always walking those streets. They're going to be walking next to this community or to this location. Elementary school kids walk to schools, and as you know, they're closing down schools. One of those is in my area, so that's going to force more students to be walking across around this location. The type of zoning that they're requesting, I'm not sure if there's something else that they can do if they're not taking in any offenders. And I understand that they're not taking in any offenders that are currently listed as offenders, but I did find an article in Texas at one of their locations that they had an adult man, he received bond and court-approved release into this program, and he checked himself out. So they have no control on whether people can come and they can go. If they're utilizing our security, which is our police force, in order to deal with unruly people that are getting out of line. Everyone already knows that we are understaffed with our police force. This is in a neighbor or in a community that has 2 high schools that already have the police coming to their schools constantly because they're not abiding by the school's rules. Sorry. Also, another comment was, how will this affect the community's property taxes or property values? I don't see this coming into a very wealthy neighborhood. This is coming into an area of the city that's already struggling. So how are we going to ensure that the property values in our neighborhood does not get harmed by this?
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public? Oh, excuse me. Could you come back up for just a minute?
So you said your kids, they go to Enders, is that right?
Yes.
Or over in that area?
Yes.
And do they normally walk or do they bus, or how's it, because it's so close?
He's 5 currently, so he does not walk by himself. He will eventually walk by himself. That is, if there's ever a crosswalk to get him across 31st Street, which I've talked to the city about already.
And so do you see that being that in a residential neighborhood with kids and stuff, that's kind of your biggest concern, is just being able to have a facility that is adult males that's inside that facility, or is it just more of the type of facility?
Adult males is definitely a big thing. I will be honest with you. All of my research prior to this meeting was based on their teens, because that's what everyone was saying, is that it was going to be a teen male facility. So learning that it's going to be an adult male facility is even scarier for the community. If you look on this picture right here behind this building is a home that has kids, 4 kids inside of it that constantly play outside, and that looks over to them. The entire block has kids that are constantly outside playing, but that one is the very close one right behind Sherwin-Williams.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Susan Reyneros. My address is 2917 South Osage. Several of my questions have already been answered, but there's more than just those 2 schools in this area. So just on the other side of South High School, there's also an additional elementary school. To the north, west of this address, there's also a middle school and another elementary school. And to the west is an additional elementary school. So there are 6 schools, public schools, within 5 miles of this facility. In addition to that, there's already been, sorry, I'm a little nervous, so my voice is shaky. A planned state psychiatric hospital to go within 5 miles of this facility. And so all those things in that general location is very concerning to me regarding not just child safety, but adult safety as well. And as the gal just spoke on, that area is flooded with high schoolers on a regular basis. In addition to that, there's also a liquor store across the street from this facility and a smoke shop, which I find a little odd considering that they're fighting against those things. And again, we've heard a lot about their success rate, but I'm curious about their dropout rate, because the only information I could find on that was up to 40% in the first year dropout rate, which, while their success rate is really great, is that taking into account that dropout rate that leave the program rather than continuing in it. So,
Thank you for your comments. Are there any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Jason Platter, live at 1510 West 30th Street South. I'm also the Vice President of Dorothy's Lane here in Wichita and the Vice President of NAMI, Wichita National Alliance on Mental Illness. I live about 4 blocks from this facility. When I first heard about it, especially being the correctional facility and the limited information, I started digging into it and looking. I've done kind of unconventional. I've called several of the schools. I looked up on their site, found the places. I called the schools. I called the adult places. And what they have said at those schools, and that's lined up with what he said, without the problems with things and everything, because I want to make sure what the individual schools were saying compared to the people presenting it. Because it's just like an election campaign, you're selling something that looks beautiful when the reality of it isn't always the way it looks and is dressed up. But what their schools are saying, unless he put everybody on a script all across the nation, it's a pretty good program. Working with the city the last 15 years, I've worked with a lot of people with addiction, a lot of people in alcohol, a lot of people with mental illness. This is a facility for people with addiction, for people with alcoholism. It's not a criminal facility. We're worried about the kids, they say, with the high schools and everything. This is like a alcohol treatment center, AA, on steroids, helping them to become better. It's helping our family members. It's helping our neighbors. You know, we worry about these people that's in treatment, but we've got how many of our neighbors may be alcoholics or drug addicts that are not on treatment at all, and they're roaming free at the access to those kids. I'd like the idea of after this is done to, if they leave, it goes back to not being zoned for the penitentiary, because that way it does not leave the door open for somebody else to move in. The only suggestion I'd have is what they've asked about with the high school kids, number of kids walk around, if they can put a retaining wall or fence or anything along the front side of it along 31st Street, even if it's like a 4 foot high or something to close off part of it to create. There's a lot of kids I've seen cut across the parking lot going places and everything else that it would deter that for it. Other than that, that's all that I have to say, and I really appreciate their coming into it and giving people a chance to make their lives better, because I've seen so many of the people fail out of so many rehab places going over and over again, and their success rate looks good with this, and it's giving people the opportunity to overcome their demons. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public here that would like to speak on this case? If not, I would invite the applicant or agent to come back, and you'll have 2 minutes rebuttal.
So I don't have much for rebuttal, but I would just say that, you know, we're to answer some of the, or to respond to some of the comments, is there will be a fence on 3 sides of their ownership. So if you have people cutting through there, they're not going to be cutting through. They're going to be stuck in that space. So there shouldn't be a way for kids to cut through there, or others. As for the police, yes, this will use the police just like everybody else in our city. But I would hope that the police may actually prefer an operation like this, because presumably they would be reducing problems in our community, and maybe even the police might refer people to this organization to seek help. You know, again, as far as dropout rates, I don't know that if he wants to speak about dropout rates, but I mean, people have their own choice to be in this sort of thing, and you know, I think it's important to note that if the organization wasn't doing the work, we would have 0 improvements in this problem, presumably. That it just is a big support for people. So I think that's a net gain. That's 100%. So I don't know if, Wayne, if you have any other comments?
Just real quickly, the success rate that was spoken of, it is for those that complete the program. And yes, people do quit the program because it's voluntary. They're not sentenced there. And I think it was very clear, the gentleman said, we're not a criminal facility. We're not taking people with sentences over them. And so we're not contracting any beds. So I won't repeat myself on that. And so yes, people do quit, but we make every effort to get them out, get them home. So many times someone comes, picks them up and drives them off. And so we are very aware of the concerns, but we will control, and we have a record of that, and we just want to be a part of the community and give back.
Thank you again for your comments. With this, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss on it? Yes, Mr. Johnson, Bill Johnson.
Well, to start with, I don't know of any program that could be introduced to us that we get a guarantee 100% it's going to work exactly like they plan. In my opinion, if they get 1 or 2 people cured in this facility, I appreciate their effort. I think another thing is they're taking a facility that I don't know how long has been on the market, but used churches don't sell well. So with that said, I think we need to approve the application.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this? We have a motion by Mr. Bill Johnson. Oh, yes, Mr. Blick.
I got a question for staff. This hasn't gone to DAB board yet, has it? Hasn't? It's March 6th, is that correct? So if anybody,
Yes, that is correct. It goes to DAB in March.
okay, sounds good, in March.
Any other, yes, Mr. Cox.
I'm sorry to interject, but just for the edification of the group, this group will, as part of the licensure process, need to seek a waiver from city council of a 1,200-foot distance requirement from residential zoning amongst many, many other uses. So the action you take today is a land use action, zoning action. It's not going to be the end of their process. They will also be going to city council to ask for that waiver. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And did you ask me a question? You did, it was Dab, sorry.
Yeah.
So that being part of city code, we don't necessarily need to make that part of our motion.
Oh, well, no, sir. No, sir. I just wanted you to be aware that there is another piece of this process for the applicant.
Right. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bill Johnson and a second by Ms. Foster.
Cindy.
Pardon, yes, Cindy?
So I just want to say that I know within a couple of miles of this facility, WRC Women's Recovery Center operated for many, many, many years. They took women in that were in recovery in a residential area. We have a mental health crisis across this country, much of which is tied to substance abuse. And we are going to have to put facilities someplace in order to have people receive long-term treatment. I know I work at the corner of 9th and Grove, and I see crime happen in 2714 every day from people who aren't or have not been able to find a facility to receive some sort of treatment. And at some point in time, we're going to have to open our arms to invite people in to get the help that they need. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see our crime rates grow if we don't address the issue that we have. And so for that reason, and I'm going to say something else too. Empty churches in neighborhoods only attract crime. And as somebody who recently sold off a church in a neighborhood where the air conditioning units were stolen, the building was broken into, a number of other things. We had homeless population hanging around that church. I was so glad to see that building sell so that it wasn't sitting there vacant. So I think as far as property values, having that empty church sit there will have more of a negative impact on property values than having an occupied church. So for that reason, I will be supporting approving this motion.
Mr. Aldrich.
My concern is more so towards the neighborhood. I do have some major concerns for the safety of the neighbors around there. And I fully understand the need for facilities similar to this. We do have a major drug crisis throughout the country for various reasons. That's pretty much all I had to say. I'm still thinking.
Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
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 We have 2 nays. Okay. Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which I believe is the discussion about solar panels.
Mr. Chairman.
Can we take a quick break?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. I need to report ex parte conversations on all sides of this issue. I live in Colwich, and you can't hide when you live in Colwich. But I do believe I've also studied the 300-some pages and attended one of the open forums, so I believe I can keep an open mind in making a decision.
And Kirk Spence, Deputy County Councilor, just for clarification, because this is a legislative, and so you don't have to worry about the ex parte communications at this point. Thank you.
Okay.
Duly noted. Thank you. Any other questions on this
Darn, I
before
was
we
honest and I
call
didn't
on
have to be.
staff for a presentation?
I missed my...
Good afternoon, everybody. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department. Next slide, please. So today we will be reviewing some information regarding large-scale utility solar. Getting feedback and comments from all of you, as well as potential action. Next slide, please. So just a quick disclaimer, the Sedgwick County Solar Moratorium allows a legislative review, as Kirk just mentioned. The Sedgwick County is not considering any specific solar applications at this time, so we have not received any applications regarding large-scale utility solar. The current draft changes would be for Sedgwick County and the city of Wichita, and this topic does not include accessory uses like solar panels on a residential building or commercial building or roof. This is large-scale utility solar. Next slide, please. So again, we will have a discussion today. We'll go over some existing conditions. We will talk a little bit about our current regulations. I will talk you through the process thus far that has begun back in October, leading us up until this point. I'll go over some of the public input that we've received. We will discuss some of the themes that have emerged from this process, as well as discuss next steps. Next slide, please. Existing conditions. Next slide, please. So back in 2019, we did have some updates both to the Unified Zoning Code as well as the Comprehensive Plan regarding renewable energy systems. Next slide. As far as solar energy conversion systems, it is a conditional use. There are approximately 20 supplemental information requirements within the Unified Zoning Code, including the ability to add conditions as needed. There is a formal review process involving citizen advisory boards, the Planning Commission, and the County Commission. Next slide, please. As far as that conditional use process goes, typically we would see an application submitted, followed by public notices that are distributed 20 days prior to the MAPC meeting. From there, the case is heard by advisory boards, district advisory boards, as well as citizen advisory boards. Small city planning commissions would also hear this case if applicable, and the MAPC would have a hearing. From there, the case is heard by the governing body. Next slide, please. So as far as the comprehensive plan goes, it is an overarching document that provides guidance regarding solar energy conversion systems. There are a couple pages from the comprehensive plan located in front of you this afternoon. It discusses selecting appropriate locations, saying that that could potentially be challenging. Design and performance standards need to be established, and protecting the viability of existing cities and their ability to grow. That is text taken right out of the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. The current status. Next slide. So this has been the process thus far. As I mentioned, we started back in October. Let's go to the next slide. And we are currently here. This is a recommendation to the governing bodies. The MAPC Advanced Plans Committee has reviewed this several times over. Let's go to the next slide. Like I said, dating back to early October, the MAPC Advanced Plans Committee has seen this item about 9 times in different variations. So they've seen this presentation a handful of times. So I'd like to think that those individuals are pretty well versed, but we are going ahead and doing this presentation again, as it is a very important topic. Next slide, please. So here is the schedule, the remaining schedule going forward. Obviously, we have our MAPC meeting today, followed by several CAB and DAB presentations, leading into the Board of County Commissioners meeting on March 6th, with a March 20th expiration date of that moratorium. Next slide, please. Several staff reports have been written as part of this process. All of those staff reports are available in your packet, hence the almost 300-page document that you've received in preparation for this meeting. But those do include the Solar Town Hall report. That was a town hall that we held back in November. And then an online solar survey report. We conducted a survey from November 16th through November 28th. The results of that survey are in that report, Solar Best Practices, as well as a solar public input report. Next slide, please. As far as best practices go, we have collected lots of different information from the American Planning Association, from the Center for Rural Affairs, as well as from the federal government. All of those sources are listed there. Sorry, it sounds bad to me up here too, but I was like, surely it sounds okay to them. So, excuse me. Sorry, everybody. Is that better? Okay, sorry. Next slide, please. Public input. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, there is a survey. We conducted that in mid-November. We had a town hall in November as well. That was also mid-November. Letters and emails received. We've received several in-person comments throughout this process dating back from October. Those are all in that public input report. And then obviously a lot of good information from elected and appointed officials as well. Next slide, please. We have received over 100 emails and letters throughout this process, dated from October to the present. All of that is compiled in that public input report. Next slide, please. Solar themes that emerged from both the town hall event and the survey are listed here. Column left is the town hall, column right is the survey. You can see some common themes developing there: urban development and growth, decommissioning, groundwater contamination being the popular topics. Next slide, please. At the Advanced Plans Committee on the 14th, they decided to have staff pursue more information about those 4 topics as they were the most popular that emerged from those 2 events. Next slide, please. Again, the goal is to take those themes, review those against our existing comprehensive plan, the zoning code, continue to receive public input throughout this process, look at best practices, as well as look at what other communities are doing on this particular topic. Next slide, please. Again, the comprehensive plan is a general framework. It provides guidance and recommendations on this topic, whereas the Unified Zoning Code is where our regulatory requirements reside on this particular topic. Next slide, please. I will go into each of those themes individually. Next slide. Decommissioning is the first one. Just to be clear, we currently do have existing UZC recommendations on decommissioning. Next slide. So these are recommendations that came out of the Advanced Plans Committee over the course of several meetings. The first being the removal of solar equipment should be at a depth specified by ordinance. 4 feet was decided upon. Financial assurance shall be provided by the owner-operator in the form of a surety bond. The plan shall indicate the length of time needed to complete decommissioning, and the applicant shall provide a statement that the owner-operator will notify the city-county in advance of any decommissioning. Next slide, please. The majority consensus from the Advanced Plans Committee was that on the comprehensive plan was that no changes be recommended, so just changes within the Unified Zoning Code, not within the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. So the next theme that we discussed was, sorry everybody. Does this work?
No, too far.
How's this? Okay? All right, sorry I'm struggling with this. The next theme is groundwater and contamination. Again, we do have existing regulations regarding groundwater and contamination. The Unified Zoning Code, as far as recommendations from the Advanced Plans Committee, is to require pre-construction, periodic, and post-construction soil and groundwater testing within 90 days of substantial removal of any portion of the system. Another recommendation was to have the zoning application include a list of construction materials to be reviewed by the Director of Sedgwick County Environmental Resources for a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Next slide, please. As far as the comprehensive plan, the MAPC Advanced Plans Committee recommended no changes to language within the comprehensive plan. Next slide. The next theme was urban development and growth. Next slide, please. This is the 2035 urban growth areas map. As you could see, Wichita is obviously the largest component there to the right, and then all of the city limits are in dark blue for those smaller cities, and those urban growth areas are highlighted in lighter blue. Next slide, please. The urban growth areas map depicts anticipated long-term growth patterns for the cities of Sedgwick County. These areas are not prescriptive or binding in nature, but serve as a reasonable indication as to where the future efficient and fiscally responsible extension of public infrastructure, services, and corporate limits could occur by 2035. Next slide, please. This is the urban area of influence map, very similar. Urban area of influence map is taken directly from our unified zoning code. Next slide, please. The urban area of influence process, basically what that would look like is if a city planning commission, if we received an application for large-scale utility solar, the city planning commission would receive the notification from the MAPD that a proposed project is located in their area of influence. The city then has an option to consider that item. They are not required to do so. The city planning commission would review the case and provide a recommendation to all of you, the MAPC. The MAPC would then hear the case with a small city planning commission recommendation. And then the Board of County Commissioners would hear the case. If that small city recommendation is denial, then 4 of 5 BOCC votes are required for approval. So that's kind of what the process would look like for the first time. Thank you, Kirk. And then if it were to go through again, it would not require a supermajority. So that 4 of 5 votes would not be applicable there. Throughout that entire process, those cities that receive an application in their area of influence can provide other comments throughout the process in the form of letters, resolutions, or verbal testimony. Next slide, please. Here is urban development and growth 3-mile boundary, 3-mile radius map. Basically, during the survey process, one of the comments that came out was that people taking that survey did not want large-scale utility solar located within 3 miles of the urban area of influence. So this map was provided to us by Invenergy. It depicts what that looks like. That red boundary line is the city limits. The pink surrounding that would be where solar is not allowed, whereas the white area would be where solar is allowed. Again, this map came about due to several comments from individuals taking that survey and attending that solar town hall event, stating that that would be their preference. So that was direct result from those two events. Next slide, please. During one of our advanced plans committee members, we had a committee member mention the 1-mile radius. That's what this map depicts. Same exact concept, pink being where solar is not allowed, white being where it is. Or, excuse me, pink being where, white being where it is. Excuse me. Next slide, please. As far as urban development and growth, the majority consensus from the Advanced Plans Committee was to make no recommended changes. Next slide. The contributing factors for the Advanced Plans Committee's recommendation was that they're comfortable with the existing process. The conditional use process currently provides the flexibility that a small city can indicate whether or not large-scale utility solar would be a good fit for their community, and that there are plenty of opportunities throughout that application process to provide input. Next slide, please. Comprehensive plan, no changes recommended. Next slide. Theme for size and configuration, there's a couple different sub-themes that I'll go through on each of these. The first one being setbacks. Next slide. So we do have existing language regarding size and configuration of large-scale utility solar currently, but I'll go through some of our discussions that we've had over the last few months. Next slide. Advanced plans recommendations for UZC, major consensus, no changes recommended. Next slide, please. Their contributing factors for making no changes to setback language specifically was that additional conditions may be imposed on a case-by-case basis using the existing conditional use process. So if an application comes in, you can look at that and use that conditional use process to make any required changes or any changes. Next slide, please. No changes recommended for the comprehensive plan regarding setbacks. Next slide. Size limit. This would be the size of the actual solar structures themselves. Next slide. There was recommended by the advanced plans, no limits. Next slide. The contributing factors there were, again, utilizing the existing conditional use process. Additional conditions may be opposed on a case-by-case basis. Next slide, please. No changes regarding size limit to in size and configuration regarding large-scale utility solar in the comprehensive plan. Next slide. Height. Next slide, please. There was some discussion about limiting the height of solar panels to 25 feet with the ability for the height to be increased during the conditional use process. So this is a formal recommendation from the MAPC Advanced Plans Committee to limit the height to 25 feet. The existing language limits it to 35 feet. Next slide, please. That height of 25 feet was based on best practices research and information collected from other counties. Like I said before, that ability to potentially increase the height of solar panels through the conditional use process is still available on a case-by-case basis. Next slide. No changes regarding height specifically in the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. We did have a couple additional topics come up throughout this process, namely fire protection. We had individuals from the Sedgwick County Fire Department come in and speak to us. That resulted in some additional language regarding fire review based on where that large-scale utility solar project is located. If it's located in the city, it would require review by the City of Wichita Fire Department. If it's located in the county, obviously Sedgwick County would take a look at that application. Next slide. I will go through a couple of Board of County Commissioners' comments. We did present this item, this presentation, at their February 6th meeting, so I'll do a quick recap of what we received from them. Next slide, please. Regarding decommissioning specifically, and I'll take these topics one by one, they had some thoughts about providing or requesting more detail in a decommissioning guarantee. The Board of County Commissioners said that they didn't care for the letter of credit and they wanted guaranteed financial assurance from the applicant. They recommended that that the application should include protections to ensure that the guarantee transfers with ownership, that the county should be notified if the project is sold and or ownership changes, and that the disposal of solar panels should be done properly and that those panels should not be left in Sedgwick County. Next slide, please. Continuing on with decommissioning, they wanted to make sure that property owners are protected, especially if the company goes out of business, and that there were general concerns about the environmental impact of solar panels and the need for a hard date when decommissioning will start. Next slide. Regarding groundwater contamination and water quality, they wanted to ensure that appropriate ground cover to prevent erosion. They were also concerned about the contamination of the construction materials used in large-scale solar. And let's go to the next slide, please. Urban development and growth, they discussed wanting specific rules in the Unified Zoning Code stating where solar is allowed specifically, less complex and more rigid. They were not in favor, there was a comment made about not being in favor of solar in urban growth areas. There was a desire for applicants to understand, respect the areas of influence. There was a comment made that solar provides economic opportunity for property owners. There was also a comment made that they were not in favor of a 1 or 3 mile solar ban. This goes back to those maps that I showed earlier. Discussion about accessory and principal uses and how it applies to solar UZC requirements, as well as a discussion about the UZC definition of solar energy systems and encouragement to have the Advanced Plans Committee review it to ensure that it meets the community needs. Next slide, please. Regarding setbacks, specifically in terms of size and configuration, they thought that the current 40-foot setback requirement in the UZC is not sufficient. There was concern about setback distance from residential properties. They were also concerned about setback distance between residential properties and battery storage units. That was a topic that came up when we had fire in attendance. There was general questions regarding right-of-way and section line roads, as well as general questions regarding federal, state properties and setbacks, and general discussion about the applicability of the UZC to federal and state properties. Next slide. In terms of size limit, there was some general concern with BOCC members regarding spacing between projects. An example of that would be requiring a 2-mile space between large-scale projects, as well as some concern about wildlife corridors. There were thoughts expressed that anything over one section, which is 640 acres, is probably excessive. And there was a question about whether it would be appropriate or advisable to measure size by the amount of electricity guaranteed or types of infrastructure installed. Staff indicated that this was not a common measurement based on our research. Next slide, please. Height, no significant concerns regarding height. Regarding coverage, there was a request for the Advanced Plans Committee to consider whether a maximum coverage amount should be in place. Again, general concern about wildlife corridors. Next slide, please. Regarding fire, they want to ensure that solar projects do not create an additional cost burden for the fire department, fire training, equipment, and legally there was a general discussion regarding the property owner's signature being required for zoning applications in Kansas. Next slide. That's kind of the summary of what we received from the staff meeting, the BOCC staff meeting on February 6th. Next steps. Again, we are here, so the next step, we'll go to the next slide, please, will be based upon whether or not your action taken today would be a few presentations from here on out, but March 6th would be the Board of County Commissioners vote on this particular item with that moratorium expiration date in March 20th to be specific. Next slide. I think that's all I have, and then I'll open it up for questions. My apologies on the microphone.
Questions from the commission of staff?
To comment, Bob.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, Advanced Plans Committee has been working on this for 4 or 5 months. And though there were a lot of notes that Justin, where he said no changes were recommended, believe me, that wasn't a case of us just saying, oh, well, the stuff that's there looks fine, we'll just move on and not bother thinking about it. Every single word in these proposed regulation changes was reviewed and discussed some more and compared with best practices, and we had all the public input that the public was willing to give us. And where we decided that our existing regulations were in fact the best solution to what we wanted to achieve with the regulations, that was why we went ahead and said that our existing conditional use process is the best way to handle these very individual projects. Every single one is going to be different. And the urban growth areas and urban area of influences, we had long discussions on that. Part of the issue was we couldn't figure out where that 1 to 3 miles outside the urban growth area number came from. Seemed to just be pulled out of the air by someone. The 3 miles would have just effectively made solar impossible in Sedgwick County on a commercial scale. And the more we discussed it and discussed the issue of private property rights and the rights of landowners to be able to decide, and the rights of small cities to be able to decide for themselves whether they would want a particular project or not in their area, the more we decided that the existing process that's in place for urban growth areas was appropriate for solar, as well as it is used for all the other industrial and large-scale commercial projects in the county. So I just wanted to make that clear. One other point, just in case there's anybody in the public who's going to speak here, and we had to make this at almost every meeting. This body is not charged with approving or disapproving any individual solar project. We're talking about how we might propose changes to the zoning regulations for Sedgwick County and Wichita for the future. That's our task, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Joe Johnson.
Yes. The comments that you heard from the county commission, what would be the procedure for incorporating those into the document at this time if we wanted to?
Kirk Sponson, Deputy County Councilor. In regards to those comments that you were looking at potentially incorporating from the BOCC, I would view that in a similar manner as any other language that the board would want incorporated today. I don't want to speculate too much. I think if there are minor tweaks or changes, we might be able to make some changes on the fly. But if there are extensive changes that occur, it will likely take some time and potentially another meeting in order to incorporate any major significant changes.
That would not be my will.
I have a question. So Joe, did you see anything new from the county commissioners that we didn't talk about over the last 4 or 5 months?
I haven't really studied it that much.
Good.
What they said.
I didn't see anything new. It's just a way of phrasing it.
Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Aldrich.
Thank you. I've got a couple of concerns, and I did not set it in any of the advanced plans meetings, but I've read a couple of comments that we received from emails and packets and stuff. But on the urban development and growth plan that we have, it's there for a reason. And what my concerns are, without 100% knowing exactly where the first applicant is going to propose location, but I think it's imperative that we need to make sure that we protect the rights of smaller cities, whether it's Mays or Colwish or Goddard or Park City or whatever, that if any approval of solar panels, especially on a commercial large scale, is granted, that they have a right to deny the application because you're going to have an economic impact issue. And I guess one of my questions to staff is, to your knowledge, has there ever been an economic impact study to see the positives or the negatives from any of the other site locations that already exist, whether it's Oklahoma or anything else that we're aware of?
So Kirk Sponson, the Deputy County Councilor, I'll defer to Scott Wadle on the specific answer to your question. I do want to clarify that with the phrasing of your question, the proposed changes in front of you are any types of regulations that the county would or would not want to impose within the unincorporated area. This isn't a question of ceding authority to the local municipalities to areas that are outside of their jurisdiction. Ultimately, if there were some preference to limit or exclude commercial solar outside of the city limits, that would be a county determination based off of factors that you believe within the best interest of policy, whether that be with consideration to future growth and development, to housing, environmental impacts, whatever that may be. But for what is in front of you, it is consideration of how you want to apply the county's regulations within the unincorporated area. I know, I just don't want to blur the lines necessarily on that discussion. With that said, I'll defer to Scott.
Well, I'm just, want to make sure, first of all, that we're not telling some of the smaller communities, especially if you see a large acreage of these solar panels go in, that, sorry, you cannot grow anymore. You're stuck where you're at right now. And, I think that they ought to have a major voice in it. And there's some concerns there that I have, and I understand the different levels and procedures, and I definitely understand all the hard work of a few months that advanced plans to put into this thing, and I get that. And I'm sure all these questions that I'm bringing up right now were probably asked 100 times over, but I just want to make sure that we are watching out and protecting, the rights of other smaller communities as well.
Ms. Foster.
Thank you. Just one speaker, one member of the public who spoke influenced my consideration of that topic quite a bit. When he said, you know, the small cities, yes, do have a right to have some influence on what goes on near their city limits. And that's what the urban area of influence is about, and that's an agreement between the county and the small cities. But he said, you know, I live in the unincorporated area of the county. I don't get to vote for those city councilors. I get to vote for the county commissioners. And to me, the county commissioners are the one who should have the final say on this, not people I don't get to vote for on my land. So just for your consideration, that was
Again, I
thought.
understand property rights, and I'm not talking about, questioning any type of personal property rights for their own use. What we're talking about here is commercial, and I think there's a little bit of a different thing here. That's, again, I got concerns, and, the good thing about being part of this body is that I get to ask and make statements about some of the concerns I have on certain issues. Thank you.
Scott, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sure. Just in the hopes of making sure that you get a complete answer to your questions, I believe that there was a portion of your questions which dealt with economic impact analysis. And I'll tell you, for this one, we don't have a specific project that we've done that analysis for. In the research that we've done with other communities, there have been economic analysis that have been done, but that's not been a theme or a focus that we've done with our research, but it has been done in certain locations. I would also point out that in the existing regulations, as part of the zoning code, it says here that an applicant, this is F, under the section pertaining to solar energy conversion systems, the applicant shall provide an evaluation of potential impacts together with any plans and proposals for alleviating social and economic impacts upon local governments or special districts and alleviating environmental impacts which may result from the proposed facility. And I would just point out that that text is proposed to remain with what is being proposed in terms of amendments.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Johnson?
I don't know if this is a question of staff or legal. How much input does Evergy have in this discussion?
Kirk Spaltz, Deputy County Councilor. Just to clarify, are we talking about Evergy or Invenergy? Just to distinguish.
I guess what I'm concerned about, what that type of business is relating to this, and it's a city, county, open themselves up for lawsuits over what is decided, yes or yea or nay?
So, taking that question from the standpoint of if it's Evergy, which is the electricity provider for much for many places in this region, they've had the same opportunity that everyone else has in terms of stakeholder input, and so they've had opportunities to send information in writing, also provide comments in person at the different hearings.
And I guess you're right, Evergy's just a city of Wichita. Outside, you got other utility companies.
That's right. There's co-ops and others that provide electricity. Yes, sir.
The other thing is, I haven't read all the information either. What about future transportation, highways and stuff? Does that take into consideration in this deal? Specifically like Northwest Expressway? They have to be very, very quiet about what they're proposing because they don't want everybody thinking they're going to make $1 million.
Sure.
But yet, I don't want all of a sudden a solar farm right in the middle of where they want to take this, and we got all kinds of problems.
So the question is about have we taken into consideration transportation network and also improvements, and one of those examples being the Northwest Expressway. And for that one, fortunately, there are overlapping policies and procedures that are in place. And in the zoning code, we actually have an overlay district that's set over that proposed corridor, the Northwest Expressway. So in some ways, that is regulated through that already. Questions have come up about what about county roads or township roads that are out there, and if a solar facility was to come in, would it in any way impede the ability to have enough land and right-of-way to improve that? And the first thing is that in order to do structures, there would have to be platting, so there'd be a platting process that would be gone through. And then the other second thing that's related to that, so through the plating process, Public Works would have an opportunity to ask if they have standards, and they could ask for additional right-of-way if they wanted to. But the other thing to keep in mind is that there is a 40-foot setback, which is required as part of the zoning code today and is not proposed to change.
Any other questions from the commission at this point?
Just one quick question. The security for the decommissioning, it still seems to me to be up in the air. We talked about having a surety bond, but it was stated from this table that you can't buy one for that long a period. How did we, I wasn't here last time, how did we justify what we put in there? And I noticed the county commissioners were concerned about the same thing.
As Kirk is getting ready to answer that one, I would just refer you, like how I did that. I would just refer you to the attachments that you got as part of your materials for this item. And in there, you will find an edited version of the zoning code, what's proposed to be amended, and you'll find highlighted in yellow the changes and also struck out text. And so I don't have a printed copy with me right now, but I would encourage you to look at the section that refers to those financial guarantees.
Which is on page
I believe it's page 4.
page 10 or page 4.
So Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Councilor, I will actually have to pass this back to staff momentarily. If I recall correctly, I believe that there was language that was common in decommissioning about best practices that were that were reviewed on national level. And I believe maybe even with some of the surrounding jurisdictions. I believe that staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like that is a standard best practice. I would also point out that there are different options available for them to provide financial or fiscal surety for these projects. It could be bonds, it could be cash, it could be other acceptable things that the county were to describe. So there are options available, and it was raised at the last meeting that this language do be run by county finance to see if they had any input, things of that nature. And I believe some tweaks were made in that regard to the final language that is in front of you today based off of their input.
And I will follow up on that. So it's page 10 on the version that I'm looking at, which is part of the packet that's online. You will see under item V, where it talks about the decommissioning plan, it indicates that the required financial assurance shall be provided in a form of a surety bond, cash held in escrow, or any other financial instrument acceptable to the governing body. So it provides flexibility for negotiation about what works. But we've heard time and time again, both from advanced plans, public comments, and from elected officials, that it needs to be a guarantee that can be drawn on in the future should anything happen. And so we've got language in there about different forms, but it also provides the flexibility for there to be a negotiation between the governing body and the entity about what is appropriate. It also goes on further to say that if it's in the form of surety bond, then it shall not have an expiration date, shall only be released with the consent of obligee, and is callable if not renewed within 60 days. So again, these are provisions that have been added to strengthen what was already in the zoning code.
Does that answer your question?
Good words, but I don't know if that's possible to get, so.
It's been discussed.
We talked about this at length.
I know.
And I think it ended up being that there's going to be a review process, if I'm not mistaken, on each one of the guarantees. Whatever the process we're using, there's going to be a review. It's going to be like, 5 years or whatever. Every 5 years is going to be reviewed anyhow. So at that point in time, everything's under scrutiny, I guess you want to use the word, whatever other word you want to use. But I think that's how we kind of came down, because I'm the one that probably harped on this more than anybody else about nobody's going to give you a 50-year bond or a 50-year letter of credit or something to that effect. I know it. But so I got satisfied when they said, well, there's going to be a review process, and we're going to let each application kind of stand on its own. And they're doing it now with the wind farms already and solar. So there's a process there that we don't really know at this point. We'll know by the time we get ready to do one. Thank you.
Are there, yes.
And just following up on that, I would just indicate that that is item B on that same page, page 10 of that attachment. It talks about every 5 years that the decommissioning plan and the cost would be reevaluated and updated as needed.
Are there any other questions or comments from the commission of staff on this? If not, we will call on public comment at this point. Excuse me, yes, Mr. Blick.
Same. Is this going to be similar to public hearing or comments when it comes to cell phone towers, that you won't talk about health and safety of solar?
Kirk Sponsor, Deputy County Councilor. That language is specifically governed by federal and by state law, so actually health considerations may be made in accordance with these deliberations.
Sounds great. Thank you.
We thank you for your comments. We'll call on anybody from the public who would like to speak on this subject. You will have 3 minutes. Please come to the mic and state your name and address. And as we go through this process, I would encourage you not to repeat any items that have been covered by previous speakers. Thank you.
You're welcome. My name is Jennifer Connolly, and I live at 3353 North 159th Street East. And I just want to make a couple of comments. One of them was similar to what I said before about farmers and ranchers. They're often having to sell off their properties now. Their kids don't have anything left for them to go to. And I think solar is the way to go for them because they can get money from that. Otherwise, they might have to sell off to a large corporation, a corporation that will probably put in a facility, or excuse me, they'll put in irrigation, and that irrigation could dry out the land and leave you with nothing for your little city or your little town or whatever you have. Right now, a lot of towns are in need of funding and money, and young people want to see renewable energy. They want to see that. The larger companies in the United States are going to all renewables. Amazon plans on being all renewable by 2025. They're sitting at 25 gigawatts worldwide. So this tells you which direction we're going. We have a lot of these huge Google, Amazon, all these areas that have data centers that need energy. And where is this energy going to come from? It's not going to come from just oil and gas. We need all of our sources that we can get. And we need to start thinking that these towns can grow by having these companies that come in and say, I want 100% renewable. I want a state that is going forward and not backwards. I want to attract young people to my communities. We have places right now that we're changing that don't even have internet service. When are we going to change? When are we going to look for the future and see what's going up, what's coming down the pipeline? That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this? If so, please come forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. I am Kent Rowe, 3353 North 159th Street East. That's a pretty tough one to top, but yet we have striven for this for years, for a decade, through the state legislature to try to get solar energy, clean renewables into these communities. This is a thing where we need to really pay attention. And what is growth? Growth is something that we have to take a careful look upon, because growth can be very destructive. It can make for a hollow city core area. It can be a place of a lot of crime, blight, and we just heard a lively discussion on addiction. These are the kinds of things I'm talking about. When you have a backward energy policy that does not allow for clean growth. This is a power plant we're talking about, a major energy production plant. It does not burn coal from Wyoming via a railroad. It does not use natural gas or oil from as far away as the tar sands in Alberta. It is energy generated right here, goes to those communities nearest the area, but the monies go out of state, and I don't like that either. What we passed up in all of these years was the community like Mays itself to be a generator and a broker of energy for the demand response market. It is not too late to do that, and we're trying very hard in Topeka to change those laws. I mentioned last time we're one of 6 states that don't allow power purchase agreements for energy production. So that's coming on. We want to be seen as a welcoming state for those companies that have already committed to renewable energy 100% by 2025 or 2030 at the latest. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this case? If so, please approach the podium and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, good people. My name is Walt Chappell. I live at 3165 North Porter in Wichita. I know quite a few of you folks, and I have a lot of respect for you. You can hear me better now? Thank you so much. I want to just take a minute to reflect on the fact that we're talking about God's laws as well as man's laws. We're trying to come up with some regulations that we put on paper as good, caring people. But the fact is, we have to have enough surface area to produce any electricity from the sun. That's God's law. So any of these projects have to have at least a minimum of 750 acres of usable land. And to get that, they have to lease additional acreage, like 1,500, to be able to come up with enough to have 100 megawatts of electricity. Now, many of you folks are business people. You understand cash flow. To get a project financed, you got to have enough money to show, all right, if I sell my electricity, I've got enough of it to sell to make the bottom line and make it so I can repay my loans. The bank has the final say. People around here will decide your regulations, but it's really the financing, you know that. Any project that we do has to be based on feasibility. Will it work? Will it make enough money to actually do the investment? And we're talking about investments of $200 million at a minimum. If you play your cards right today, you're going to bring in about $1 billion of new investment to this county. And only 3 locations. 1% of the land will be used out of the whole county. But $1 billion worth of investment, my God, think of that. That's a lot of new jobs. We have an opportunity to produce and manufacture the racking for these collectors. The metal work that'll be done for the posts, the pylons, as well as the racking to hold the collectors. All that's work that we can now have as manufacturing base. Now, you were talking about the county commission. There were actually only 2 commissioners at that meeting. I was there. One was online, had his arm in a sling. And we have two that were at a different meeting. So you only had one person make a comment, and we put it up on the screen as well. That was what was, okay, it was what was said, but it wasn't a consensus. I'm holding this piece of paper up right here that says we have, in Kansas, we're 46th in the nation in the use of solar. Texas is second. Colorado is 12th. We're so far behind. We have so much sun. We have as much as any of the other states, but we haven't taken advantage of the resource we have in our own. You know, every time that sun comes on, man, we can produce electricity. I ask you, please come up with some realistic regulations. The ones that the Advanced Planning Commission has proposed will work. And I think in terms of the urban areas of influence, just briefly, that is speculation, isn't it? Somebody thinks, well, maybe in the future I want to put a housing development out there or a new Walmart or something. Well, that's in the future. Right now, you got opportunities right now. If you make this decision today in the right way, you're going to find a blessing for the whole county and the economic growth of our area. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Jim Lineber. I live at 14715 West 61st Street North. I live on a farm and a cattle operation right in the heart of the proposed solar farm. My family farm was established in the late 1800s when my great-grandfather purchased the land. I am the fourth generation of farm this land. My son, who is taking over, will be the fifth. And now the county wants to take my property rights as a landowner away from me. As you sit here today and try to make a decision for the whole county, I want you to keep in mind that the opposition themselves have said we're not against solar. So what exactly are they opposing? Is it quiet country roads with no vehicles or truck traffic? Or is it taking farm ground and putting it back to native grasses so there is no wind or water erosion? The areas of influence around cities is nothing more than someone sitting in their office having a dream that in 10 years, this is where our city will grow. But no one ever came and asked me, the owner of that land, if I was ever going to be willing to sell that land. There's one person that will be an influence over my farmland, and that is me, the landowner. Trying to control land outside of their city limits is an overreach of their authority, and I have no vote in any of the elections in that city, and that is not right. The Advanced Planning Commission has done a great job in ensuring our rights as landowners remain intact when considering the zoning code for solar. I hope you give their recommendations the careful consideration it deserves today. In closing, I hope and pray that you have the common sense not to put a ban on solar farms in areas of influence or to limit the size of the solar farm and respect our property rights. Your decision today will affect all landowners in Sedgwick County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak at this time from the public? Please come forward and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. And remember to cover only new material. Thank you.
Andrew Albert, 3155 North 135th Street West. I wanted to say thanks for you guys all being here and putting your time into this. These decisions aren't made lightly, just like the decision that we made to put our ground in this program wasn't made lightly. Being like Jim, we've farmed since 1875. we've owned land in Sedgwick County since then. Obviously, nothing was out there along 135th and those areas. I really have a hard time with this city of influence. I live out in the county. I own land in the county. I own land in this project that may come. If I'm not represented by these city council people, they have no say on what I'm doing. The county commission has say on what I'm doing. So I don't agree with that statement that cities have rights on what I'm going to do. I don't plan on selling my land. My land's worth a lot of money where it's at, but we're not doing that. If we don't build a renewable energy project, guess what? We're going to keep on farming. I don't want to see duplexes. I don't want to see housing. I don't want to see apartments. Yeah, those things are great. They're needed. But our project or whatever project that comes in isn't going to affect those things. I see it right now, and you guys can drive out on 135th where this project's supposed to go, maybe. You can actually see them actively building homes. Those developers know this is coming. This may come. It hasn't stopped them. So that argument that we're going to slow urban growth isn't valid because they keep building and they keep going. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend we see how many more people would like to speak, so we.
Sure. Can we see a show of hands of anyone else that wants to speak after this? I think this is it. Please state your name, sir, and address, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Craig Zogelman, 10620 North, 135th West. I and my brother own some adjacent property next to what Andy has. And my view on it is I work with several developers, and I see the progress of homes, duplexes, and all the expansion. That energy is still going to be demanded, and it has to come somewhere. And you have a Gordon Evans plant that basically is just a hand-in-hand project waiting to happen. And I also think that if this project were to be decommissioned at the end of the 50 years and solar was outcasted by then or something new had come along, what is that 750 acres going to be worth to these little communities if this is all decommissioned in 50 years? With that much growth all the way around it, you're going to have a hole there that has just unlimited possibilities for more homes, more industry, and that kind of stuff. So that's my viewpoint. I mean, I appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of studies and all of that with it, but I'm just thinking that our energy grid is already at a breaking point, and we can't keep building and building and expect nothing to change and nothing to come along and support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. At this point, I think we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
In quick response to Deputy County Councilor, I know I've mentioned this before, but I really do want to stress this. I certainly appreciate some of the speakers who talked about their own personal experiences and specific locations. I would just caution that no application has been submitted for commercial solar. No application is in front of the board. It is these considerations of regulations as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
If no one else has anything to say, I'll make a motion.
If no one else has to speak, I'd like to read the motion that we need to make, and then you can make it, okay?
That's the one I've got in front of me.
Okay. The motion should be, I believe, to recommend to the Sedgwick County Commission and the Wichita City Council amendment to the July 9, 2009 edition to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Unified Zoning Code adopted by the City of Wichita, ordinance number 48-431, and the Sedgwick County Resolution number 137-09 as amended, and dealing with Article 3, D.6.pp, renewable energy systems. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Okay, that's
should
your
I
motion.
should I take that as you made a motion and I'll second it? Or should I say
I'll
so
let you make
moved?
it. Okay,
If that was a motion, I second it. If that was not a motion, I so move.
okay. I made the motion. You seconded it?
I seconded it.
With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
One nay and 14 ayes? 13.
13-1.
Okay. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And this will move on to the city and the county. With that, unless there's anything else we need to bring up, Scott?
Yes, sir. There's one more thing that I'd like to announce. I do want to let you know that we have a couple of staff members who, one is retiring and one is leaving for another job opportunity, and I just wanted to mention that to you. Kathy Wilson, who has worked in our office for a number of years, she will be retiring, and so we are going to have a celebration of her service coming up next Friday, not this Friday, not tomorrow, but the next Friday. And so if you have an opportunity, I would encourage you just to stop by and say hello and thank you for her service. And then as well, Paul Schiffelbein is also leaving for another opportunity, and so we wish him all the best, and we really appreciate all the hard work that he has put in here in the planning department, really getting our systems going. So just wanted to mention those two, so thank you.
Thank you. Commission adjourned.